Yes, yes, you should be blackpilled about dating, which, in other words, means two things. One, realizing the importance of looks, and two, hypergamy, which is the concept that women only date up. So, when you combine these together, you understand women only want to date a guy who is more physically attractive than them. Anyway, I'm going to talk in this video on my experience of how I first got redpilled around 4 years ago, which I followed for 2 straight years until I discovered the black pill, which I've now been following ever since for the same period of time, 2 years. Anyway, we'll start right at the beginning. So first I was redpilled, and despite following it for 2 years, none of the concepts really resonated with me, and I saw zero improvements to my non-existent dating life. For the most part, I just felt completely lost and aimless. And for those who don't know what the red pill is, it's basically the umbrella of principles related to self-improvement in order to improve your dating life. So working on your appearance, your finances, your mental health, and of course, game. Now, these might sound like great ideas on the surface, and you're probably confused to how I felt lost and aimless, despite having these 4 strong pillars of guidance to adhere to. But the biggest problem I had was I didn't know which of these factors I was lacking, how they would benefit me, and by how much. And just to clarify, I was never the kind of guy to watch one of their videos and never practice it in real life, which I'd guess 90% of their viewers are. Rather, many times I'd try utilising the information I learned in a video, particularly about game, only for when I used it, I'd get the opposite response of what I was told I'd receive. Here's a great example. A common principle taught by dating coaches is instead of asking a woman if she wants to go on a date, you should instead tell her, "I'd like to take you out to this awesome place." The idea being that telling instead of asking comes across more assertive and masculine. Well, when I tried using this technique, I was rejected and confused why it happened when the theory sounded so promising. Another example, which again is a common game principle, is that you should wait at least the same amount of time a girl took to respond to you for you to text her back. For example, if she took 10 minutes to respond, then you take 15 minutes. The reason you do this is because high-value men are busy with their lives and this will captivate her attention. Well, once more, when I tried using this technique, it resulted in the opposite outcome of what I was told, and I was still getting flaky responses over texts. This made me realise my first issue with the game part of the red pill. The majority of dating coaches out there can say whatever advice they want, and as long as their explanation somehow trails back to what a high-value man would do, then they're able to package it as good advice for which the majority of inexperienced guys will fall for it. For instance, going back to how long should you wait to respond to a girl's texts, if I was a dating coach, I could quite easily justify that you should respond straight away. All I'd have to say is a high-value man goes after what he wants, doesn't play stupid games, and doesn't wait for success to happen to him. On the flip side, to show why you should wait longer to respond, I could use the explanation, a high-value man has better things to do in his life than wasting his time texting his social circle indefinitely. As you can see, the explanation can be bent in any direction I desire, and as long as I can tie it back to being the behaviour of a high-value man, then it is seen as high-quality advice. I saw the same thing happening in the Will Smith incident a couple months ago. Some people were saying Will Smith was right to do what he did because a high-value man should stand up for his wife and protect the people around him. Meanwhile, others were saying he shouldn't have gotten that emotional and his overreaction was a low-value trait. Another issue I have with the game aspect of the red pill is today, especially on YouTube, the creation space has become so oversaturated that the most successful channels are now the ones that simply shout the loudest and offer the shortest and easiest path to success. I've noticed it's the channels that promise the quickest results with the least work that are able to capture struggling men's attention. It's a matter of fact, during the time I was redpilled, I found myself constantly switching from channel to channel when another creator proposed supposedly more efficient methods. This meant I rarely stayed focused on perfecting certain skills before moving on to the next piece of advice. The problem is, a lot of guys who delve into the pickup community get presented with an infinite number of paths to take, and for men with little to no experience, the ones that always look the most attractive are those that promise the highest reward for the least work. However, it's often these easy paths that are the ones built on empty promises. I'll put it this way, if I was to tell you you could achieve the dating life of your dreams merely through employing a few copy-paste texts and canned pickup lines. If I told you this, then of course you're going to get excited about it. Those are my issues with the game aspects of the Redpill. And I know this is just one corner, and there's probably a lot of you watching now ready to shout at the screen saying game is only the cream on the top after you've built a solid foundation in the other areas. Well, this leads me into the second part of the video, because I know a lot of Redpill channels out there do emphasise the importance of hard work and increasing your value in these areas first. However, I experience different problems when following these principles. The biggest issue I had is I found it very hard to stay focused, motivated and on my purpose, as they put it, when I never saw the work I was putting in translating into dating success. So even when I did put in sustained amount of effort into increasing my value, improving my appearance, I still felt like I was making no progress. And the usual responses I'd be told by the content creators, which I must have heard a million times, was to just stay on my grind. Just hang in there, trust the process and the results will eventually come. But my problem was I had no idea how much time or how much effort I'd have to put in order to see the fruits of my work. The journey ahead of me just felt like I was stepping into one big fog with no clear end goal in sight. And yes, even though I'd be making progress in some areas. For example, I got into fitness for around 6 months and managed to get to this level of physique, which I'd estimate is around 12% body fat. I went from a 50 to a 75 kg bench, 120 to 180 kg deadlift, and even managed to do a few muscle ups. However, I only felt like I was making progress in my fitness journey and not my dating life, which is what I wanted. I had no idea how to utilise my improvement so I could get better at dating without being a douche and rubbing it in people's faces. My thoughts were, there's 365 days of the year and for around 360 of them I'm going to have my shirt on. So what difference would it make having a six-pack when no one will be able to see it? And no, I didn't use this as an excuse to give up, and I'm not the kind of person to give up easily. To simplify my point, when I was on my improvement journey, I found the areas of my life such as fitness, such as my social skills, such as my finances, were all going up. But as for my dating life, none of these improvements led to any changes. My dating life had started non-existent and remained non-existent after. And this growing gap between the work I was putting in and the lack of results I was getting made me angry. I felt like I had no direction. And when I was told to just trust the process and the results will come, my response would be, well, how long until I see those results? Another issue I had, which made me question the advice I was following, is I'd compare myself to other guys who were putting in a tenth of the work I was, yet I'd see how they were getting far better results in terms of dating. This made me envious and started making me lose faith in the work I was putting in. Now, of course, if I told the content creators this, they'd have said I should have never compared myself to others, and I should only be focused on my journey. This may be partially true as well. However, this still didn't explain why I wasn't getting results, but they were. All I wanted to know is what did those guys have that I didn't, which meant they were more successful than me? And more importantly, how would I know how big the gap is between me and them, so I would know how much more work I would have to do to overtake them? Anyway, this is why when I originally stumbled across the Blackpill, I was conciliated. And quite frankly, I was blown away. The things I like the most is it laid things out in a very mathematical and orderly way. In fact, it literally tells you these are the factors that go into your attractiveness. Here is a chart showing the different ratings of guys so you'll be able to know where you stand. And lastly, if you have any of these extra factors, you'll need to either subtract or add points, depending if they go in your favour. This idea was completely new to me, and I was absorbing the information as much as I could. This was the first system that allowed me to understand where I stacked up against other people. And it also made me hopeful because when I first worked out how attractive I was, I knew I was roughly in the 5 out of 10 range. And thankfully, all the work and time I invested into self-improvement didn't completely go to waste, because when I compared myself to photos from a few years back, I was more like a 3.5 or 4. Also, after realising I was a 5, I knew I wasn't even too far off from reaching 6. I knew with a few tweaks and improvements I could easily reach that level. So that's what I did, and that is where I currently see myself today. And at that point, I knew it was only a matter of time until I'd be able to get my first successes in dating. You will hear the full timeline of the whole of my dating life from start to finish when I reach 100k subs. But just to give you a quick heads up, I had my first proper kiss 2 weeks after discovering Blackpill content. A month later, I lost my virginity, then just a week after that, I did it again. So pretty much, I went from 0 to 3 instances of dating success within less than 2 months after understanding my attractiveness. I then realised soon after these experiences that casual dating wasn't for me, and a short while after this I got my first relationship, but I'll reveal that and much more at 100k. Anyway, to get to the point, the reason I think getting blackpilled and learning the 2 concepts I spoke about at the beginning, the importance of looks and hypergamy, the reason I think this changed my dating life so much is because this gave me so much confidence and motivation to improve, as I now had a measurable scale telling me where I am, and that I could slowly but surely climb it too. And yes, although many of you might be pointing out now it is incredibly difficult to climb the scale and every person has a ceiling, in spite of this, I knew I could still make some progress and, as I've talked about in previous videos, even little steps of improvement can make worlds of difference in terms of your attractiveness. I've coined the idea that the attractiveness scale resembles something more like the Richter scale than a standard linear graph. So each point of difference is more similar to a 10 times difference rather than just a measly +1. So even though I do agree with the notion, it is very hard to climb the scale, going from a 4 to a 7 say. It is much easier to go from a 5 to a 6, which is what I did, and gave me everything I needed with regard to my physical attractiveness not being as much of a limiting factor anymore. I believe basically everyone who hasn't already looks maxed can improve their looks by at least 1 point. Which doesn't sound like much, but it really is, and there's absolutely no reason not to. The last bonus is once I got most of the looks maxing out of the way, I could then focus on improving the other areas of my life, such as my social skills, my finances, and just maintaining the level of looks I'm already at. Anyway, those are my arguments for why you should be blackpilled about dating as a man. Let me know any other ways besides these how it helped you in your life in the comments below, and make sure you press the like button as it helps the YouTube algorithm.